Welcome back to the Java lesson. In this lesson we will learn about the constructor and the type of constructor. So first of all, what's constructor? Constructor is a special method, or you can say a block of code looks like a method. It has the same name as its class name and there is no return type as in case of method. It is invoked to create object and its purpose is to initialize the data members. Let us feel it by an example. Start notepad with some file name like abc.java. I am creating a abc.java name file. Yes. And now I am writing a class with simply a name and opening closing brackets. This is the smallest class you can write. This is the smallest complete class because there is no error if you will try to compile, but it will not execute since it has no main method. So let's start to compile it. I'm saving it, and now using javac we can compile it. Compiled. So after compilation we can try by dir command that we have two files here. One is abc.java, that is our source code, and one is compiled file add.class. We know that there is no constructor we have defined in this class, but just to try what happens after compilation. I have added one more video previously that what happens after compilation. If you want to see, then please click to the link shown on the screen and you can see about it. But now I am showing you what happens after compilation of this class. So just java-p and your class name a. This shows that there is a method with same name as its class name, but there is no return type. This is actually a constructor, and this constructor is given by the compiler at the time of compilation. Here we see that if the programmer doesn't give any constructor explicitly, the compiler adds a constructor with no argument. Such constructor is known as default constructor. In such constructor, the programmer cannot add any statement, but sometimes it becomes a requirement that programmer wants to add some statement in the constructor, but default constructor do not allow the programmer to add any statement, and in such situation programmer add a constructor with no argument and then they can add any number statement. Such constructors looks like default constructor, but they are no argumented constructor. So if we will give constructor, then okay, otherwise a constructor will be given by the compiler at the time of compilation. So suppose I am giving one constructor here with same feature, same, and come and save it and once again compile, and then try to see inside the class. So once again we have the same constructor as previous, but in this case actually this is not a constructor which is given by compiler, this is given by the programmer. So this is actually the difference between default constructor and no argumented constructor. This constructor at this time is given by the programmer, so it is actually no argumented constructor. But if we will not give this constructor, remove it and then compile, then even then the compiler will add a constructor with no argument. This is called default constructor. Default constructor is given by the compiler where we cannot keep any statement, but if we are adding a constructor by ourselves, then we can add some statement here. Statement or statements. That means we can add some SOP. It is possible because this is a constructor given by us. But if we are not adding this constructor, then the constructor this constructor actually is default constructor, because this constructor is given by the compiler. So one thing we know, that whether I will give or not, there will be a constructor. Compiler will always add a no argumented constructor. At the time of compilation, if there is no constructor added by the programmer, one no argumented constructor is given by compiler, and it is called default constructor. If same constructor is given by programmer, it is called no argumented constructor. So we have learnt about at least two constructors. One is default constructor and another one is no argumented constructor. So we can have two types of constructor, one without argument and one with argument. So now let's see about some parameterized constructor. So let's change the class to see parameterized constructor. I am creating a class named as rectangle with two data member, length and breadth. So we can have a default constructor. So if there is default constructor, what will happen if I will add a main method and see the value? See the value by creating object of this class. Here we are calling actually the constructor to use to create object. Okay, so if we want to create object, we have to call the constructor. However, there is no constructor added by me in this program. So from where this constructor will come? So the answer is the compiler will add a default constructor in this case. So let's see what's the value of length and breadth in this case when we are not adding any constructor by ourselves. One space. Let us see. So save it. Now compile. and then try to execute, because we have a main method in this class and the class name is rectangle, so we can execute this one using the class name rectangle. So we see here that we have 0 0 as a length and breadth value. So from where this length and breadth value is came? Actually there is a constructor. Now I'm going to show you what the constructor added by the compiler. The compiler added a default constructor. This is actually added by the compiler, and the data members are initialized inside the constructor with a default value 0. As the data type integer, so the default value is stored here in both the data. We have 0, that's why when we are trying to print r1.l and r1.b, we see that there is a 0 value here. So now we can pass some value in our data member by using parameterized constructor. So I am adding one parameter here as x, or wait, just initialize with some different value and see that if we will add this constructor, what will happen. Let us recompile and run. I guess I have not saved it. Now the value 10 and 20 is here, because we have added two expression to initialize to reassign our length and breadth data member with 10 and 20. So suppose we want to add a parameter so that we can pass some value from somewhere else to this constructor to assign those values to these data members. Then we can add a parameter, like suppose we add a x as a parameter and assign both length and breadth with x. Then we have to call here, because we have added a constructor with a one parameter as integer, then we have to add here we have to call this constructor with integer type of data. So I am passing here a 20 as a data, and let us see what will happen on execution. So we have 20 on the screen, because there is only value we have passed here as a x, and this x is assigned to length and breadth both the data. So in this way we are passing our value to the constructor, and through constructor the data are initialized. So this one statement that it is used to initialize data members of an object is proved here, that we can pass some data from when invoking constructor, and this value will be through parameter assigned to our data member. So let us add one more parameter, because it is rectangle not square, so it might have different values, x and y, and b is assigned with y. So we have to pass two different values from here. Now let us save it and execute. Now we got 20 and 50 that we have passed from this main method from invocation of rectangle constructor. This 20 and 50 goes to x and y, and through x and y the data member length and breadth are initialized. So we get 20 and 50 as a result. sometimes we need to create object of a class in more than one ways, and in such cases we can add more than one constructor with different parameters. This is the concept of actually the overloading, where we have more than one ways to create constructor. But we can have multiple constructors. For example, if we add one more constructor, one more thing I want to say, that in this case we cannot create an object with using no parameterized constructor. It is not possible. It is not possible because there is only one constructor added by the programmer, and compiler will add a default constructor only if there is no constructor added by the programmer. So since here a constructor is given by the programmer, so this constructor is not available, and let us check it what error message will come. We will see that it will say there is no such type of constructor. See here, there is constructor missing. Constructor rectangle in a class rectangle cannot be applied to given type. So in this case, if we want to create an object without any parameter, then we have to add one more constructor. So in this way we can have more than one constructor. I have given a default value as a 20, 10 and 20 for rectangle constructor. So if we will try to print one space, then we will see that in first case we have 20 and 50, and in second case we have 10 and 20. Let's save it and compile and run, and here it is. In first case that is value 20 and 50. So in this example we are actually watching that we have overloading case. There is two constructors in a same class. If anything is more than once in a class, it is overloading, either method or constructors. So since we have here two different constructors to create objects, so we can say that this is an example of constructor overloading. And if the same case happened with a method, we can say that this is an example of method overloading. So the type of constructor is here default constructor. If constructor is not explicitly provided, compiler adds a constructor without any argument. User defined constructor provided by programmer. Constructor without argument is no argumented. Constructor with argument is called argumented. In case of user defined constructor, the compiler will not add any default constructor, and in this case the programmer or designer has to explicitly provide a non-argumented constructor if it is required. Constructor overloading, we have seen here more than one constructor with different signature can be provided, and this is the case of constructor overloading. If a class contains multiple implementation of constructor or method, then constructor or method is said to be overloaded. So this is just a definition for you guys that what constructor overloading or method overloading is. I'm not going in depth with the method overloading here because we are talking about constructor. So first of all, we see here that what is constructor. Different overloaded constructor or method are designed either by varying number of arguments or by varying type of arguments. So we can have overloaded constructor either by number of arguments or type of arguments. So here is number of arguments differences. We can add one more constructor here. So this is one parameterized constructor, this is two parameterized constructor, and this is no argumented constructor. So in this way we have three different constructors, for example of constructor overloading, and we can create object with all these three types. Let us check it. We have only 20, 50, 10, 20 because we did not add any printing statement for displaying the third object's data. Save, compile, run. Compile and run. So here we are. Now the caution we have to take care when we are using constructor, that the constructor should not be kept static and the constructor should not be kept final. The members who are kept final is because we do not want to override it, but actually constructor is not inherited. So if it is not inherited, then there is no use of keeping it final. In next class I will discuss about the anonymous block. Till then, thank you, take care, bye bye.